Hello, my name is Susan Ashley and welcome to my YouTube channel, Susan Kassandra. If you'd like to know more about me, you can go to my website, lovelightandtruth.com. I'm currently doing daily meditations on my Facebook Live page, which is Susan Ashley, Energetic Alchemist and Spiritual Consultant. If you'd like to join those daily meditations, which are very empowering, where we're raising the vibration of the planet to a 5D frequency, and we would like many people to join together every morning. Look, I'm there every morning without fail. Even if you just put your intention to hook in and link in with us, that's great. But if you'd like to join us live, it's 9 a.m. Paris time every morning. Okay, so let's get on with the subject for today. I wanted to do this video to give a little bit of insight into the darkness, or what we call demons, or the devil, or Satan, because I have a background in working with this and I have a great understanding of those energies. I would like to share with you some of what I know to be true. Now, what I'm sharing with you is my own personal knowledge. It's not something that I heard from someone or that I read somewhere. It's from my own personal experiences and what the conclusions were that I came to that really helped me. Because when this started happening for me was basically from a very young age. I was seeing demons and like really strange creatures. But on the other hand, I was also seeing fairies, pixies, and highly evolved beings as well that were talking to me. So I had clear vision as a child up until I was 15. And it was very scary because I didn't know what was real and what other people were calling my imagination. And as a result of that, I, basically I used to have, when I was really young, I used to have this nervous tick, because I was so afraid. And there were times in my life, in my younger years, where I wouldn't breathe at night because I believed as a child that if I stayed still and they couldn't hear me breathing, they wouldn't find me. So I understand what it's like to be terrified out of your heart with fear around darkness. And it was a very long, intense journey for me, and I was very fortunate to have some incredible people in my life, because that kind of stopped around 15 when I begged the visions and everything to stop, and then it came back in my early 20s with a vengeance. And when it came back, I was hunted down by these demons. And I wasn't just hunted down by the demons in spirit, I was hunted down by men who were running cults, satanic groups. It was just bizarre, what was happening to me. And if you understand, right, that was in the 80s, the 70s, 80s. There was no internet. There wasn't much written about it, particularly in Australia. Yeah, there was a lot in England. I did go to England in the 80s and live there for a little bit. That helped a bit to find out some information. But in Australia, it just wasn't, people just didn't know about it. So I was left to my own devices and the people around me who really, really loved and cared for me and knew I wasn't crazy. And I'm forever grateful to them, because had I gone to, let's say, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or someone like that, I would be in a mental institution, 100%, I knew that. Which is why I became a therapist myself, because I wanted to save people like me from being institutionalized or drugged. That's why I did that. And as a result of that, of course, what did I attract? People like me. But I also attracted people who were in satanic cults as children, who had been ritually abused, who had experienced hell on earth. And as a result of that, I had to dive into the darkness in such a deep way. And what I know to be true is that anyone who's been abused as a child or as an adult has been touched by evil. And when you're touched by evil, it's like it puts a stain in your auric field, and it starts to attract more negativity and evil into your life until such time as you recognize it and you do what I'm about to tell you. Because what I discovered over that span of, over 30 years was that its way of controlling you is through the fact that we're in resistance to it. I know that sounds really horrible because a lot of people are going to be screaming at the moment, what do you mean? We have to embrace it? We have to become it? No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is when you're in resistance to something, it's like you're fighting it. As long as we're in the process of fighting something, we'll always be in the fight. It will always come against you. And that was another thing, like the New Age. Okay, so here I am, this spiritual therapist. I'm working with people. People are like really attracted to me because I'm using crystals and sound, and I'm looking at past lives and, ancestral triggering. I'm looking at entities and how they're attached to people, what links them to people, what I need to know, how to let go of these entities. And everyone's calling me a New Age bunny. Actually, I wasn't. I wasn't a New Age bunny, and I never was. Why? Because I thought it was actually invaded by evil. I thought that some of the stuff that people was preaching was pure shit. I'm sorry to say, but it was. It was just so stupid. A logical mind, and I have quite a logical mind, could look at that and go, oh my God. So I understand why many, many people would turn around and say, oh, that's just hippie New Age shit. Because it is. It's just psychology. It's like crazy. Oh, you're responsible for everything that happens in your life. You're 100% responsible. If you've been abused, it's your fault. You must have on some level chose to experience that as a child. Bullshit. I call bullshit on that. I work with enough people to know that that's not true. So, I'm going to give you a little bit of different stories so that I can really ingrain this into you, because I actually didn't know how to break it down and give it to you in parts, because the way my head works and the way I work is a lot with spirit. I've come to be okay with that and align myself with beings that are loving and kind and generous and helpful, who never, ever ask me to do anything that's negative. That's the number one thing I wanted to talk to you about. So I know what I'm aligned with, but I also know myself because I've spent 35 years meditating every day. And I would go to these retreats and do silent retreats. And I've meditated in many different forms. I find the Buddhist form the most profound because it's silence and going within. But I know a lot of different techniques. So my whole life has been studying this stuff. Going deeper, understanding it. What I know about that resistance thing is the more you know, the less it can do to you. It's when you're in resistance and you're afraid and you don't understand it that it can really dig deep inside of you. And of course, when you're a child, you're dependent on the adults around you. And if they're part of the problem or they're not knowledgeable, like my parents weren't bad people. They just didn't understand me at all. So they put me in places. I was once in an institution which was hell on earth. It was a place called Hopewood. If anyone wants to Google that, you can find out that they did experiments on kids there. It was pretty horrendous. I was in foster care places which were equally as disgusting. So when you think about self-worth and self-hatred, you could have looked at me square in the eyes. I mean, I don't hold any of that. That's part of the evil. Part of the evil is actually holding negative feelings about yourself because of something someone put on you, like crazy people, right? That's part of holding that negativity in yourself. So one thing you can do is to seek help and be very, very careful who you seek help from, because when I was working as a psychotherapist, I had young people come to me. I could tell you thousands of stories, but I'll only tell you two, right? One was a young man, he was 19. He'd been abused by his stepfather for years. He went to a psychiatrist in Sydney, and he said to the psychiatrist, because what you find with people who've been ritually abused from a young age is sometimes they can be overachievers, and a lot of the time they can be underachievers, which means that they don't work, particularly if they remember it, right? Some people don't remember because of what's happened to them, and some people do remember. The people who do remember, consciously remember, they find it very hard to hold down a job or to even function in life. I found working with the two different ones, I know this is going to sound horrible, but I actually found that people who forgot and slowly remembered as adults were better off than the people who remembered the whole thing, had a conscious memory of it. So this young man had a conscious memory of it. He couldn't work, so he didn't have any money. And I was seeing a friend of his, beautiful young man, and he mentioned him to me. He said, look, he's seeing someone, it's really screwing with his head. Would you be open to see him? He doesn't have any money. And I said, sure, of course I will see him and see what he's like. Beautiful young man, very tall, beautiful round face of an angel. Anyway, he told me that this psychiatrist he'd gone to and said, look, I don't have any money to pay you, but I really need help. I've been abused for, 10, 15 years by my stepfather, and I'm, screwed up. So the guy said, oh, that's no problem. I'll help you. And then at the end of the session, I'll have sex with you, right? So here's this young man gone to another man for help. And now he has to do sex with him after he's just cried and had a breakdown about what his stepfather did to him. So you tell me how much that's going to help that young man. It's not. Well, I asked him to report that psychiatrist, and of course he wouldn't. He was too embarrassed and ashamed, and he just wouldn't do it. So that's one instance that I know of. So the second one is a couple came to me, and anyway, she came in alone, and she said to me, she was crying, and I was like, okay, why are you crying? Please tell me what's going on. She said, well, my husband and I, we've been going to this therapist, this psychiatrist, and his style is really intense. And I said to her, well, what are you talking about? And she said, well, my husband doesn't know this, but this psychiatrist took me aside. She was a beautiful, beautiful looking young woman. My husband took me aside and he said, not my husband, the psychiatrist took me aside and said, look, because they were having problems in their marriage and they were having problems with the sexuality of their marriage. So this psychiatrist told her that she had clearly been abused as a child and that she had some severe problem around sexuality because of this abuse. Now, this girl loved her parents, had full memory of her childhood, and thought she was going crazy because she was like, I don't have any memory of anyone doing anything to me. This is insane. Anyway, so this psychiatrist said to her, I've got the perfect way to heal you. He'd taken her aside from her husband and told her, I've got the perfect way to heal you. You're going to dress up, you're going to go to this hotel, you're going to dress up as a prostitute, and I'm going to come and pay you for sex. And that'll open you up sexually, it's going to heal you, and everything's going to be fine. But every time she thought about having sex with another man other than her husband, it made her worse. So the marriage was really, but she was told by the psychiatrist not to tell the husband. And she also knew the husband he wasn't abusive in any way. He was a loving, kind man. But, if you heard that was happening about your wife, you'd be really pissed off. You want to punch the guy in the face. So she was worried that her husband would get arrested if she told him. So they ended up coming to me. I was working in a clinic in North Sydney, and they came to me, and he was waiting outside in the waiting room. She told me this, and I said, well, I think, first of all, you should tell your husband with me. We will sit here together. And second of all, I think you need to report this guy. Again, they didn't report him. And thirdly, I actually don't think, obviously I'd asked her a series of questions and I understood her energy, and I said, I actually don't think you were abused, but I do think one of your parents was abused. And so just like the child of an alcoholic can have the behaviour of an alcoholic, the child of someone who's been abused can have the behaviour of someone who's been abused. That settled her mind. She realised what was holding on. We did a little bit of work on the ancestral stuff. Obviously called in a husband. I worked with them. I probably did 3 sessions with them. Everything was fine. Every now and again I'd hear from them. Happy life. You know, they ended up having kids, etc. So what I'm saying is that if you're going to go to someone, make damn sure that that person comes from someone who knows them, who's been to them, and has recovered and has love in their heart. You know, because when you work with someone, the goal is to get that person into their heart. So if the person's still running their shit and their fear and everything, and they're telling you to go to someone and they're not at least a little bit calm, then think about who they're going to, yeah? Really ask them some questions. That's just 2 incidents. I know of many, and I still hear it today. Shitheads all around the world, let me tell you. And I used to have people come to me from America, from Europe, from England, and from Australia. And these people who've been ritually abused, doesn't matter what country they come from, they all have the same story, which is really interesting. So I started to write all this down and see the connections, and I saw the connections of the rituals that were performed on these people that linked demons to them, which was pretty mind-blowing actually at the time. So they're linking them to the chakras. You know, a lot of them you'll hear about marriage ceremonies. So what are they doing when they're little girls, you know, age 7? What's the Catholic thing that you have? Your is it Holy Communion? You do the Holy Confession, right? You do the confession, that's right. Then you do the Holy Communion. I thought there was something before that. But I sort of saw that there was a link between what the Catholics were doing and what the demonics were doing. And what I can tell you is there's a definite link between Catholicism and religion and demonic behaviour. And if you do any form of investigating, I mean, it's all out there now anyway about the priests and what's going on, I'm telling you, you're only hearing part of it. You're only hearing part of it. Look at the symbology in the Catholic Church, right? It's a man suffering on a cross. What is that telling you? It's telling you that if you are a person of love, of healing, of believing in miracles, who's connected to God, this is what they're going to do to you. They're going to friggin' torture you and kill you slowly on a cross. That's their symbolism. So doesn't that tell you something? I went to Catholic school. I know all about the devil that resides in there. I'm not saying that all of them are evil, because, you know, there are amazing nuns and there's some really good priests, but they're still screwing women. You know, they're still having relationships with women in their community, their house cleaner or whatever. Some of them are obviously having relationships with men, other priests. Grown men, 2 men having a relationship, don't have a problem with that. If that's what you want to do, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing terribly evil about that. Reason why they're doing it, there might be a background on that. They may have been abused as children. That's evil. So, but they've got kind hearts and they just fall in love with someone. You can't tell me that you can put a man in a religion and say to him, you're not allowed to have sex anymore. It's in their nature to have sex. So, you know, that just doesn't work. And then, of course, you have all the ones that are entering the priesthood because it's a great way to cover up who they are and what they are and give them a direct link to children. And those children will not say anything. So, I mean, I could tell hundreds of stories, if not more, about that people I've worked with. So I don't have a high opinion of churches. all religions. Actually, and I'm not just going to point out the Catholic religion either. I'd say that about all religions. And what I'm going to say to you is that you'll probably find in amongst Islam it's even worse than the Catholic religion. But I'm not going to go into that. What I want to talk about is, I've ranted a little bit about religion now, haven't I? Yeah, but I wanted to set the background for you about what I know, what I've experienced. And as I said, this is all my own personal experience. So I've reached an age where I understand it quite clearly. And having worked with so many people, I understand how they connect with you, how they influence you, how they infiltrate your brain and your emotions. They set up feelings for you, how they can grab a hold of you. And how you can stop it is this, like I said, the more you know, the less of a hold they have on you. And that's the absolute truth. When you're doing any form of working with people, it's like, you know, that whole thing of confession. It's been bastardized, right? So in satanic rituals, like I said, they have the little girls marrying the devil. And in that ritual, they are sexually abused. There's often blood spilt, things like this. So what happens is that they are ritualized into silence, right? So you've got holy confession, which is tell your sins to me and I will let you know if God's, you know, I'll give you something, contrition, some prayers to say, and I'm telling you that God's released it. That's not actually true. And anyone who's committed a horrendous sin knows that's not true, because the guilt they feel inside themselves, the shame that they feel inside themselves for doing such a thing, only they can release it. Only they can come to terms with what they've done. So it's not true that a priest can set you free from all your sins. It's nice belief, isn't it? You know, it's a nice belief for people who are performing disgusting acts every day. So there's this, if we could say the Holy Confession, we just take that as an example. So what it's doing is it's making you silent. It makes you silent about the truth of what's really going on, but it also aligns you with something. And it's setting up the building blocks for feeling like you're not allowed to really investigate what's going on. You can't ask questions. You can't sort of go, well, I don't know about that. That's a bit weird. I mean, you know, that's a bit strange. Is that reality? And particularly as a child, you don't even have a reasoning mind. Everything's just going in at that stage. So the more that you inquire, the more that you realise that it does actually exist. And it exists in subtle and hideous ways. And how it exists in the New Age is through telling you that, you know, you're responsible for everything that happens to you. What you're responsible for is what you do with it, how you deal with it. And yeah, you do create your own reality, absolutely. But if someone punches you in the head, right, because you've told them a truth, are you responsible for their reaction of punching you in the truth? Look, I had heaps of boyfriends when I was younger, thinking they were all spiritual and in the New Agey thing, and they'd give me a black eye, right, and say, you made me do it. And make me responsible for the shit they did to me. Not true. Not true. They're responsible for what they do to you. Now, I don't get off on the whole victim thing. Like the victim cycle, you have to come out of it. But in order to come out of it, you have to understand it. Right? You don't just suddenly pop out of something. So the reason that I don't like this whole thing of, you know, this happened to you as a child, so you're responsible for what happened because on some level you chose it. That's not actually true. What I saw from working with these victims was that sometimes it was generational, and sometimes spirits or these demons had actually stalked them from other lifetimes because they've come up against them before. So I often found that it was individuals who had a very strong light, were often gifted and talented in a certain field, that were targeted as children. And they were targeted by those demons, and those demons worked through the people around them to perform these acts. So some of those demons are actually incarnated in a physical body, and some of them are linked to a person in a physical body, and they're acting through them. When you start to open up psychically, you go through initiations, and you go through an initiation of integrity is one of them. So you'll get a message, say for instance you found $20, someone's wallet, not $20, because if you find $20 on the ground and there's no one around, it's a gift, right? But if you find someone's wallet and it's full of $100 notes, and in your mind you get this little voice that says, just take the money and throw the wallet away, it's all good. It's a gift, it's telling you, you really need this money at the moment. That's an initiation. So if you listen to that demonic voice, that evil voice that's telling you to do something that's not honourable and not integral, then there you go, they've hooked into you. And the next time they're going to ask you to do something a little bit more. And then the next time a little bit more. And before you know it, you've become someone that you don't want to know. That's how they get into you. Right? But if you turn around because you're a logical, sane person and you say, no, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm going to find out, take this to the police station. I'm going to find out who it is, and I'm going to return this wallet with all the money in it, and I'm going to feel great that I was in the opportunity to do that. So now you've just passed an initiation, and that demon can no longer be, you can't be of service to that demon. You can't. Or that transmortal, they're young demons. There's all different levels. There's all different levels of evil, right? So evil is like a dark shadow, or it's the dark obsidian core, right? So there's all different levels of evil, and it can slowly seep into you. So you have some guy who's just, got some kids around him, and in his head, this demon is saying, just give him a cuddle, give him a squeeze, feel what it's like to, maybe take advantage of that child. Now, they won't tell anyone, they won't even remember. That's what they think, they won't remember. They won't remember, it'll be fine. It's fine, they won't remember. Who cares? You're feeling a bit aroused, so you may as well. Just do a little bit. Just see. So they start to test it, and the more they start to test it, the more they get away with it, the more the further and further they go, the more they start to believe the voice in the head that it's okay, that the kid won't remember, that it's or even more perverse, that it's true love, that the child actually enjoys it, right? So this is how the evil gets in. It gets in because the first time you haven't turned around and said, wait a minute, what the fuck is going on here? I mean, why am I getting this voice in my head that's telling me to do this? This isn't right. No, I'm not going to do it. Go back to your heart and realise that this is not what you want to do. That's how it gets in. And it's very subtle to start with. And then it gets more and more pervasive. And I'm going to go back to the beginning. The more you resist acknowledging that it exists, the more hold it has on the planet. Because the more you're in denial, in the resistance, the stronger it can pervade into the reality. That's why I get pissed off with the New Age and these, people go, if I don't believe in it, it doesn't exist. We're living in friggin' duality, people. We're living in duality. You cannot go to triality, to unity consciousness, if you don't friggin' understand where you are right now. If you don't understand duality, both the good and the light and the bad, then how are you going to go to the next level? And that's what the New Age did. It kind of got invaded. I'm not saying all of it's shit. I'm just saying it's been heavily invaded with a lot of crap. It says, oh, just think about love and light and the angels and the masters. And that pisses me off too. Because when people start talking about, I have worked in places where people have come out and said, oh, I just talked to Big Mike, Archangel Michael just told me. I just talked to Master this and Master that. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. Sorry, but Jesus, do you have to tell everyone? And what is it doing? It's setting up this ego thing of, I'm a master, I'm separate to you, you're just the student, you don't know anything. I can tell you now, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, every single living person on this planet has every answer right here. They have a connection to God, which gives them a connection to universal laws, so they know exactly what is right for them. It's when they go here and this gets distorted that they start following a different path. So when you start creating master, servant, teacher, student all the time, right, and you make that a definite line, I'm the teacher, you're the student, you're creating a divide. What are you creating? Duality, right? Duality, you're holding on to the old way. What is unity consciousness? Unity consciousness is understanding that you might be teaching me right now, and I may be the student, but at some point those roles will be reversed. So for me, when I work with people, my goal, my wish, my desire is for them to go past me. Because if I'm not doing my job well, they'll always be here. But if I'm doing my job well, they'll go off and they'll create amazing things. Right? Because it's not for me to hold them back and keep them believing they are just a student. I am always the teacher. I know more than them. Believe me, I was in plenty of courses where I experienced that. And I believed it too. Oh, they know more than me. And then I would hear this knowingness in my heart that was saying, Susan, that doesn't ring true for me. That just doesn't ring true for me. And then I'd find out this person was, pretty much having sex with everyone or some weird shit was going on, too attached to money. Money's not evil, but when you get too attached to it, it is. So the evilness starts like that. It starts as a little voice inside your head that tells you to go away from what you, in your heart, know to be universal truth. What are the 10 commandments, the precepts? They're all sort of like an echo of those universal truths. And they tell you not to steal, not to lie, not to covet someone. That's an interesting thing, not to covet someone's wife. Covet, what does that mean? It means to hold on to someone, to take it. Not to covet someone. I get that all the time. People covet me all the time. So what they do is they take some of my knowledge and then they act as if they got it themselves. So they're kind of drawing off my energy and placing themselves up here, but they actually didn't source that themselves at all. They didn't do any learning or any studying or sit in meditation for weeks on end. They didn't do that. That's commenting someone's energy. So I feel like people who are in denial that evil exists will never be able to go to that next level because they're not acknowledging what's currently here. And what I can tell you is that negativity, that evil is getting stronger and stronger at the moment because more and more people have been in denial, because more and more people are listening to the New Age that says, oh, just turn that off, don't believe in any of that, just pretend it doesn't exist and everything will be fine, just concentrate on this. Yeah, actually it's true that you just concentrate on that and it will grow. What you concentrate on grows. But if you're in denial of it, that's a different matter. If you say, yep, I know it exists, I can see it, I can hear it, I can feel it, that's not the right path for me, that's not the right road for me, I'm not willing to participate in that or lend my energy to that, I'm going over here and I'm concentrating on that, fabulous, fabulous. Then you'll really, really grow it. But if there's a part of your energy that's in denial and in resistance to what's really going on, I'll just turn that TV off and everything, then you're still there. You're still 1 foot in that darkness and 1 foot in the light, right? So the way that we get away from darkness is to acknowledge it. How do you think that I released people from... Okay, so when someone would come to me that had been ritually abused, part of a satanic cult, which is different to being ritually abused in a pedophile ring, because in a pedophile ring, they're passed around, but there's no ritual involved in it. Yeah, they're abused. Absolutely, it's horrendous. They're being told certain things about themselves and silenced, etc. But in a satanic cult, not only are they abused, but they're initiated. They're initiated to connect with demonic beings and the underworld, right? At a young age. So they can be very, it's hard to get out of. People do get out of it because in themselves, they're light, they're love, they search for that. Everyone searches for love. Everyone searches for peace. Everyone searches for a feeling of belonging. And that's what drives them to find out the answer for themselves. So when they're in this satanic ritual abuse, and these demons are linked to them through certain rituals, what happens is they cord the demon to chakra system or nadis in the outer auric field, right? Which is how come they can stalk them from other lifetimes, because there's still a link, and then they reintroduce it in this lifetime. So the key to releasing that is knowing what it is, right? And for you to know what it is as a practitioner, as a person who's helping this person, you cannot afford to go into fear. The moment you go into doubt and fear about what you're doing and what you're seeing and what you're feeling will be the moment that it invades you and knocks you out of the game. You know, when I was working on people and so what I'd have to do is know, not them, I would have to know. I'd have to go into, follow the line. I could see the ritual of what happened to that person. I'd just say a couple of things and they would go, yeah, that's right? And then I'd have to look that demon straight in the eye without any fear or any doubt in my connection to love and say, you're not welcome here anymore. They're choosing to let you go. And what I learned from that was really interesting, is that the darkness has a code of ethics. So I have a lot of respect for the darkness. It's not because I was engaged in it in the sense of, I participated in these rituals or anything. No, it was just knowledge that I learned. So they have a code of ethics as well, which is kind of interesting. And within the universe, there's a code of ethics. And that code of ethics are universal laws that the dark and the light adhere to. And one is that when I must get permission. So the light has to have permission and the darkness has to have permission to work with you. Now the darkness's way of getting permission can be manipulated. It can be through a lie, but it's still permission. And another way they can get permission is through denial or through you not saying no. So you're not saying yes and you're not saying no. So you're in between and you're just allowing it to happen. Right? You're not giving an answer, which means the door's open. So what I discovered in this working with these people was that they had a code of ethics, and so what I would do was create up a sort of a particular frequency. There was a being that I worked with that would open a doorway for those beings to come and take their own. It's like, at the end of the old wars, when they would have a period, say from 6 till 8 p.m, where you could come and collect your dead. So we're not going to kill each other at this moment. We're just going to come, collect our dead and deal with our dead in a respectful way, bury them, cremate them, what have you. And so this exists in the dark reality where they can come and take their own to where they come from. So the biggest problem with a lot of the new age is that they think, oh, I'm just going to turn this dark being into a light being. I'm just going to take them into the light. Well, yeah, you can do that with a lost soul, but you can't do that with a demon. And then I'd have these practitioners coming to me freaked out because they got a demon kind of like really psychically attacking them day and night. And then I would see, okay, you tried to release this from someone, or from a house, and now it's attacking you because you can't do that shit. There are two places within this universe, right? There's duality exists to a certain level, it coexists, and then after that it has its own separate places, okay? So if you're trying to take this demon and put it in the light, you're going to have a battle on your hands, a true battle on your hands. It's a big disaster. No, you have to send it back from whence it came. You hear this in the old text, send it back from whence it came. Yeah, send it back into the darkness where it belongs. It's not your job to convert it to light. It already made a decision a friggin' long time ago. It was aligned with darkness. Now, that's not the case if you've got someone who's earthbound and angry and sad and what have you. That's different. So you've got to understand what you're working with, people. And sometimes it's trial and error. So you can get yourself in a little bit of a problem, but you can also get yourself out of it, right? So one of the things you need to do is to let that demon or that negative soul go back to where it came. So you're opening a porthole for it to return to its clan, to its tribe, right? You're not going to send it into the light, honey. It's not going to happen. That's going to get you in a lot of trouble. So you've got to have respect for these two sides. You can't turn darkness into light. It has a role on the planet, and its role is to go to young souls and make them make a choice. Where do you want to go? It's to give you free will, right? Now, people talk about free will and they're, oh yeah, got free will. Well, yeah, you're born with free will, but you have to make the conscious choice around that free will. That's an initiation. You can't just say, I'm at the mercy of everything. That's the self-responsibility. So if you know, oh, I've got an irky feeling, something's following me, I've got these bad thoughts, go get some freaking help. Don't be a victim. Oh, this voice in my head made me do it. It's not my fault. Okay, you've got parents of young kids that are a bit, skitsy. And then they're taking them to people and they're getting medicated so that they're numb, right? These kids are actually talented kids, but they're not aligned with something. They don't have any information. I know because I was there. I know exactly what it is. So darkness exists, and it exists in such a horrendous manner on this planet, and I'm seeing that it's invading more and more things. More and more things. Look at what it's doing with sexuality. 9, 10-year-olds learning about dildos and anal sex in sex education in class. Oh my God, I didn't even know what sex was at that age. And why should you? So if you're dealing with any darkness on any level, you can release yourself from it. But you can't release yourself from it from ignoring it, thinking it doesn't exist. And all you're doing then is amplifying it. How you release yourself is to know what it is, to face it and know what it is. Like, if you see these people who are like saying on Facebook and other things, oh, I don't want any things on my, I've been unfriended by lots of people because I might put something on there about, this crazy pedophilia crap that's going on the planet, and it's getting more and more perverse. Why? Why is it getting more and more perverse? Because we've been in denial about it. We're in denial about it. People don't want to know. It's too dirty. I used to have my own radio program years ago in Sydney, and it was basically, beautiful music and stuff like that. But occasionally I'd interview people or I'd talk about people. I never forget once I approached the whole subject of sexual abuse because that's what I was working with and that's what I was into. I had so much hate around that. I had people saying, how can you talk about children having sex? That's just disgusting. And I'm saying to them, children aren't having sex, honey. They're being abused. They're not participating willingly in this. They're either manipulated or they're freaked out. They're not participating in it at all. They're actually being abused. So how is that children having sex? They don't want to know. Oh, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to look at that. Oh, I don't want to look at kids starving to death. Oh, I don't want to look at that. Oh, no, that's dirty. I don't want to see that. Look at it. Try to friggin' feel how those kids feel. And if you really felt it, there's no friggin' way on this world that you would stand for it. I was living in this place in the mountains years ago, and I can actually walk past a house and feel what's going on, right? So there was this one house, this little girl, she'd scream, "No, Daddy, no." She would scream. All the neighbours friggin' heard it. Everyone heard it. We all knew. I went out to the street one night and I started screaming. And I was screaming at that man. And I said, "You stop it. I've called the police. I know where you live," which I had. "I've called the police. I know where you live, asshole. And I am going to take you down." And to that child, "It's not your fault." I was screaming. My voice was hoarse. And then I screamed at all the neighbours. And I said, "You bastards," because I hadn't long moved into that place. I said, "You bastards know this is happening and you've done nothing to help this child. Shame on you." I called them all out. I stood in the middle of the street and I called them all out, much to my own son's horror. And I didn't give a shit. Because there's no way I'm going to ignore what's happening to a child. No way. And I'm encouraging you to do the same. Do not ignore it. Call it out. We're all so afraid to say, "I know that arsehole's doing something." We're all afraid to do it. And that's how evil exists. Because we're resisting it. We're refusing to acknowledge it. We say, "Oh, well, that's their karma. That's, that little kid, that 5-year-old that's being raped by their father, oh, that's their karma. They were born into that family for a reason." Okay, so I had someone come to me for reading, a mother who was abusing her child, like not sexually abusing, but hitting it, screaming at it. And she was freaked out about it. Lord have mercy on her, right? She came to see me because she knew it was wrong and she didn't know how to stop it. And I said to her, that child came into your life and sacrificed itself, experienced the pain of having a mother that's hitting it and screaming at it so that you could come and get help right now. And I'm telling you, that woman just broke down in front of me. We did a little bit of work on it, realised why she was doing it, what had happened to her as a child. Beautiful relationship with her child, because if you do shit like that to your kid, you have to apologise and you have to explain to that child what possessed you to do it, because kids need the understanding, otherwise they think it's their fault. So act like an adult. Don't be in reaction. Evil exists because we allow it to exist, and it permeates our mind first. And then it starts to come into our emotions and eat it up, right? So we start to feel shame and guilt for what we've done. And for some, that becomes an addiction to feel that way because of what's happened to them. They're addicted to it. So they just keep perpetuating it and perpetuating it. And some abusers actually do it because they're trying to figure out what possessed the person to abuse them, what it felt like for the abuser to do that to the child, how disconnected they had to be to that child to do what they did. So I hope that I've given you a little bit of insight into how evil exists on this planet and what you can do to stop it. You don't stop the voice, you don't try to push it out, you acknowledge it. Okay, that voice is telling me to do something. Yeah, but that's not right. No, I'm going to listen to my heart. No. Right? That's how you start. When you're working with someone, you go in and you look, okay, when did this start? Was it in this life, another lifetime? Is it from the parents? Go into what's its role, what does it want to do? And I can guarantee you pretty much every time you'll see it's feeding off that person's energy. Because I'll tell you the secret, it's very easy. Light creates life and darkness uncreates. So it cannot create a soul. It must take a soul at its infancy, when it's learning about free will, dark and light, duality, when it's learning about that. It then has to go and influence that soul to behave in a certain way so it can get more for its army of darkness. Now, a soul can be taken out of that and replaced back in the light at a young and early stage. But there's a point where it'll go too far and it will never be able to return. So it's very simple. When you have dark thoughts, when you go into that grey matter, those dark thoughts may not necessarily be evil. They can be just that thing of taking that money. It's greed, Oh, they've got more than me. Look, they've got a couple of hundred in the bank. I get that too, Oh, she's got more than me, so she can pay for this, or, stuff her, like, kind of thing. I see it all the time. So, when you start to think along those lines, it slowly inches in, and then slowly you find yourself doing more and more. Look at the guys involved in Wall Street and the big businesses. They start to take advantage of their staff. They get away with it. They do a little bit more and then a little bit more, and then someone comes and offers them a way to earn a little bit more. Oh, well, child trafficking or drugs, but you're not involved in it. You're just lending some money to it. Oh, great, but I'm making more money out of this, So they're justifying it. I'm making more money out of this. I'm not actually doing it. I'm not doing it to these kids. I'm not feeding these people these drugs. I'm just making money out of it, I'm just having a better life for my family, for my friends. I'm giving more to my shareholders. And then it gets a little bit more perverse, a little bit more perverse. And as it goes, remember I said there's a hierarchy. So then as it goes into the hierarchy, they start to then pull them into, maybe they get them drunk, they take some photographs with them, they blackmail them. Before they know it, they're heavily involved. And that's what's going on with a lot of these big businesses, these companies, these foundations and everything. You only have to do a little bit of research to find out money is being laundered through them at the suffering of children and people. It's being laundered through them. So the more that we say, oh, that's okay, I can't do anything about it because, I'm just me. I'm of no consequence. Actually, yeah, you are. You're a great consequence, because if your consciousness is aligned with the light and you hold that steady, you are co-responsible for everything that is beautiful on this planet. Everything that's amazing, magical, loving, kind, generous, peacemaking. You're co-responsible for that. And every time you let that grey matter seep inside you that says, have doubt in who you are. Be ashamed of what you did when you were young, when you didn't really understand. You're worthless. You can't do anything. You're of no value whatsoever. You're useless. You're hopeless. You're just a victim. That grey matter that resides in you is holding that darkness in place. It's the bridge, right? It holds it in place. So, you know, the New Age was kind of good because it started to get people to think about letting go of shame, letting go of worthlessness and victimhood. So in that way, it was good. But I'm not saying all of it's bad, but what I'm saying is it was invaded by people who really big note themselves as truth seekers, you know, screaming at people, it's not your fault, it's not your responsibility if you behave badly. Well, I'll tell you, when you become an adult and you choose to align with darkness or grey matter, it is your responsibility. As a child, it's not. So they're giving you mixed messages. You know, when you think about a child or an animal, you're completely vulnerable. You're completely reliant on the people around you to give you everything that you need in your mind and your soul to become an adult. So they're feeding you all the information, all the belief systems. And you're just acting that out as an adult. But you know there's something in you. Because I'll see it with people. They come to me and there's something in me. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't feel right. And you can't tell me you don't get that message. Something's not right. I'm here for a reason. I don't know what it is, but something's, you know, it's just not right. It doesn't feel right. That's your heart telling you something. So on that note, I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm going to really encourage you to understand, as long as you stay in your heart, you've got nothing to worry about. As long as you acknowledge that evil exists and don't ignore it. I'm not saying go fight it, but what I'm saying is when you see it on the TV, call it out. That's a friggin' lie. That's bullshit. Hey, what about that politician? He said he was going to do this and he didn't do it. Look at the way he's acting now, getting all of his friends and families government contracts, and nothing ever gets built or done. Where's that money going? Oh, into some foundation where it's getting laundered somewhere, right? Call it out. When you're like, oh, I can't do anything about it. Actually, yeah, you can. Because your consciousness can recognize that grey matter and that darkness and call it out and say, that's not right. Oh no, I want the truth to be revealed about that. That's what you do. You place your light into the consciousness and say, may the truth be revealed. And then you go on about your day. If you see it right in front of you, you call it out. If you see some guy, right? Like I had it, like particularly when I was younger, I was really fiery, you know. If some guy walked past me and gave me a look, I'd just turn around and say, what are you looking at? Why did you look at me like that? If I was somewhere, like, I remember when I was working in that radio, when I had that radio show, one of the guys that was running it, one day, there was not many people in there, I was on my own or something, and he pushed me up against a wall, and, you know, pushed me up against a wall and tried to kiss me and everything. And he was saying, oh, you know, Susan, I'll make a great lover for you. I mean, it was disgusting. I was like, piss off and leave me alone. And I don't want to have anything to do with you. And I was like, and as I'm walking out, I say, hey, could you say that a little bit louder so everyone can hear what you just said to me? Never came near me again. You see, you gotta stand up and you gotta say, like, if you're in an office and some guy's going, oh, you know, your ass looks good today or whatever, you don't need to put it on social media, but if you can just say, excuse me, what did you say? Could you say that a bit louder? I didn't quite hear you. Right? Call him out on it. Don't just run away and say, oh my God, he did this to me, and then silently write something complaining about it, but not naming the bastard. Call it out. Oh yeah, so I got on a rant again. Sorry about that. Anyway, I'll probably talk more about this darkness because I get a lot of people asking me about it. And I think it's really important because you're going to have, particularly if you're a therapist, you're going to have a lot of people coming to you wanting to be released of things because
through the computer and through imaging, there's such a thing as archons and etc. that go into people's third eyes, which is why the kids are having a lot of problems. So, you know, more to come on this subject, but I'm going to leave you for now because I know I've probably just exhausted you. Thank you for listening. Please join my daily meditation of raising the vibration of the planet at Susan Ashley, energetic alchemist and spiritual consultant. Like, share these videos, subscribe to this channel, and above all, stay in tune with your heart, because that is what keeps you co-creating the planet that we all want. Bye for now.